So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this HubKor connector overview. I'm Rochelle Paulette, QuadCore Director of Marketing, and as an Infor SyteLine Gold Channel partner, QuadCore is addressing a significant need for SyteLine users, that is, connecting to their favorite third-party solutions. So before we begin, there are a couple of things to note. You may have heard Larissa mention it just a moment ago, but if you could take a moment to go to the chat window and enter in any third-party solutions that you use, that would be greatly appreciated. Again, if you see something that someone else is already using, please feel free to add yours as well, because that tells us the demand for that solution. As well, we'll be muting all microphones to keep background noises to a minimum. If you have any questions during the webinar, simply enter them in the chat and we will address them afterwards. We are recording the overview and we'll make it available to everyone on the QuadCore website in the resources area. You'll find those links as well as the email addresses in the chat as well. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Gary Moyle, President of QuadCore, who will take you through this time-saving solution. Gary, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Hey, Gary,
Thanks,
before
Rochelle.
you go, can I clarify just one quick thing? You guys, it's important that we know what solutions that when you take a look at what we have and what we've already built out, and you have something else that you want, it's not what you're currently using, but it's the things that you see that you want. And if you see someone else put it out there as well, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure out where we're going to go with our roadmap and on future solutions. Okay, thanks. Gary.
Thanks for the clarification.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Gary, and I'm going to be taking you through the presentation today. So I'll knock myself off camera so you don't have to look at this face, and let's go. Okay, so I think, Rochelle, just a quick check. You can see my screen okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So the product today is called HubKor, and this presentation is, I assume, to current SyteLine users. And, I want to start off with, what is an ERP system? Well, they're pretty vital, almost today's business. You can't really run your business efficiently without one, of course. But as you look at the slide, and I don't often read the slides out, we all know that they have their limitations. They're good at what they're good at. They're internally facing often. They're great at cost reduction, one version of the truth. But at the bottom right, inevitably, most of us do require some edge solutions outside of ERP as well. Typical edge solutions, there are many, many hundreds, perhaps thousands of them. But these are just a few examples of them, on the left there, CRM, HR, expense management, forecasting, tax on the right, MES, warehouse management systems, PLMs, IoT, which is becoming a big thing today, of course. So there are many, many edge solutions that we have to talk to. Our ERP has to talk to them or not, as the case may be. And that brings us into the world of integrations. Why do they exist, these edge solutions? Well, let's all admit, an ERP system is a giant solution, of course. It's none of these things, right? This are the, let's call it in the middle. They focus on one thing, right? They're not worried about purchasing and selling and manufacturing and quality and finance. They're doing one thing. So that really, I wouldn't say it makes life easy for them, but they're very nimble. They're very quick. They're agile. They move quickly according to the marketplace, according to demand. They're generally on the bottom left in the leading edge of the technology field as well. And when they see something on the bottom right, they generally react very quickly. So best of breed solutions in the edge market, as we would call it, the edge of ERP, all demonstrate these four parts of the triangle. What about ERP vendors, though? And I just ask a question, do the typical ERP vendors react as well as the best of breed solutions? I don't think so, but, leave that to you to think about. I had a quick trip up to Dreamforce in San Francisco, and I was trying to talk to people up there to gauge their interest in ERP. I got quite a shock. I was there for 3 days, and I had dinner and lunches and so on. And pretty much unanimous, everybody told me they'd stopped investing in ERP. The only reasons they would consider moving funds back to ERP investment would be obsolescence, technology, or cost. And all of their money was really moving to something that would give them competitive advantage or grow their business. So they didn't really have ERP on their investment portfolio anymore. And some of the common ones, of course, we've already talked about them: CRM, e-commerce, self-serve portals, telematics, IoT. And there are many more. We're moving into machine learning, artificial intelligence these days as well. So basically what was happening at Dreamforce was everybody was dismissing ERP and saying, hey, we have no budget for ERP. And something that I came away from, well, and this was many years ago, by the way, it wasn't just the last year or two. Is it now a case of the tail wagging the dog? We sit there in ERP world and believe we are the center of everything, but perhaps that's changed now. That really does show what the people who are invested in Salesforce thought. And what's Infor's answer to edge solutions so far? Well, down the left, you could argue this is what Infor has done mostly. They bought the edge solutions, they brand them Infor, and they try and create an ecosystem of a single vendor solution. And there's a bunch of systems down there in history that Infor have acquired. Rarely on the right, but Infor have, at least in the near term, built their own solution, of course, with a product called Factory Track. But that's pretty rare. That's a short list, of course. So typically the big ERP vendors, SAP, Oracle, Infor, Epicor, NetSuite, they generally go and buy these edge solutions, of course. Now, the later guys into ERP, we know that SyteLine's been around almost 40 years now, but the new players in the ERP space did not follow that strategy. And I've got a couple up there. There are many more. But NetSuite and Acumatica are two of the bigger players who've hit the market more recently. And they didn't follow that strategy. Okay, they didn't build an enormous, wide, deep, and rich ERP system like we enjoy with SyteLine. They basically built the core of the system. And their strategy was to integrate with the best of breed. Don't try and write those answers. Go and integrate with them and offer their customers out of the box integrations to these best of breed solutions. It's a very different strategy. And that's the way these new incumbents have gone. Basically, the topic today is about integration. We now understand what ERP is, and you guys are all SyteLine users, so no education there. We now understand why the best of breed solutions exist and why they probably will always exist. And now the topic becomes one of integrating. How do I integrate my ERP system with these best of breed solutions to give me market advantage? Well, there are hundreds of solutions out there in the marketplace that will allow you to do integrations. The big names, there are three big names that completely dominate this space, and they're called Jitterbit, MuleSoft, and Boomi. And though I have no statistics, I would guess those guys actually have over 90% of the market for integrating ERP systems to best of breed. What is the downside to those big names? Well, at the ERP side of things, they're loosely coupled, right? They don't have expertise. How could they? How could they have deep expertise of Visual, SyteLine, M3, LN, Cloud Suite Distribution, Epicor, NetSuite? There's too many of them. So they really only have a loosely coupled connection back at the ERP side of it. They're very expensive, and I've given you the MuleSoft, base price there. There's a long time to value because they don't have that tightly coupled integration back to ERP. And obviously the ERP vendors are changing and growing and adding value, adding new modules, adding new functionality all the time. And again, people like Jitterbit, MuleSoft, and Boomi can't keep pace with each ERP vendor. So there are downsides, and it's a very expensive role to play by going with these giant Jitterbits, MuleSoft, and Boomis as well. Well, what we've come up with is a product that is tightly coupled. And this is what really makes this different. We start on the left with SyteLine, and that's our ERP system. We all share that on the call, of course. Infor been nice enough to give us the integration middleware called ION, and Infor have written all the major business objects, or BODs, and they've already written that. So the nice thing is Infor have already leveraged, I think, over 130, 150 business object documents that pass between SyteLine and ION. So that part of the integration is already ready for us, if you like. So what we've done at HubKor here is we have created another middleware We branded that HubKor, and it's a connector as a service. And that is now a new category. Well, let's say new, it's been out a couple of years now. So there are several competitors in connectors as a service. And in effect, this will connect your favorite solution with SyteLine in a tightly coupled manner, which is very different to the other three that I mentioned. Now, right now, these are either in place, and if we look at the top, for example, we have four. Paperless Parts is a quoting tool, but if you look at Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, and HubSpot, three of the top CRM systems, Paperless Parts is a quoting tool for manufacturers. Many of you might already be using that, of course. Some front of office solutions here. We've got Tipalti, Concur, Profix, Paycor, RingCentral for telephony, of course. Shipping, there's some favorite shipping solutions there. Back office and manufacturing. These generally are a little specific. I wouldn't call these industry standards. So when we look at things like Infor's PLM Discrete, obviously that's Infor's product. We wrote that at the request of Infor. Microsoft Dynamics Field Service, just like at the top, they have CRM. They also have a field service offering. But generally, they're very specific. When you look at Siemens and Windchill is a warehousing solution. Streamix is for the additive market. They're much more specific down here. So what's happened for us is as we've won clients, say, for example, I'll pick Salesforce because everybody knows it. We might have gone into that client and offered the Salesforce integration, which is out of the box. And then that client has said, hey, can you introduce an integration for Siemens? We use Siemens as our MES system. So we wrote that for that client, and those have naturally just dropped in as one of the integrations we offer. Down at the bottom, customer facing, we have WooCommerce, Shopify, Magento, PhaseZero, and Stripe. So a lot of integrations already written, and we hope a lot more coming. And that's why we need your help to say, hey, what's next? What does the market want for integrations? But right now, these exist. And for us, we're only writing one half of the integration. If you think about this, the speed to market for us is quicker than a point-to-point integration. So if, for example, Salesforce, we'll just use Salesforce because it's so dominant. I have to pass the customer master, okay, from Salesforce to HubKor through ION. Well, Infor have already written the customer bod. We've then written the customer bod to go to HubKor. So now 3 parts of this integration are written for the customer. All I have to do now is go and connect the Salesforce customer. Okay, so we have either partners who we've got the expertise in these solutions, or we actually have created our own teams internally here. And for example, Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, Concur, we actually have our own staff. So in some cases, we could handle the whole integration for you all the way back from SyteLine expertise, ION expertise. Clearly, we have HubKor expertise. And then we also have this end solution expertise at times as well, either through our own team that we built or through partnerships with people who are experts in these solutions. Why is HubKor more superior than, say, a Jitterbit? Well, we went through the weaknesses of the Jitterbits and MuleSofts and so on. But we have already, before we embarked upon this, over 100 years of experience in our team of connecting anything directly on a point-to-point environment between third-party solutions and SyteLine. And many Infor partners have that, of course. We're probably no different to the majority. But we also have, and we've recruited and trained, now we have Infor ION expertise, and we've had that for about 3 years, 4 years. So we would now consider ourselves ION experts. And also what happens now is that this is a tightly coupled integration back to SyteLine. So as SyteLine changes, we're aware of it, we're on it, we change the integration very quickly if necessary. But we are SyteLine experts, SyteLine partners. So that loosely coupled piece, if you went with a generic partner, like a MuleSoft, Jitterbit, Boomi, this is a very specific bidirectional integration, providing that integration of one source of the truth, of course. From now we look at the overview, we look at some data now about how deep some of these integrations are. And we haven't made these light. They go very deep. And this one that's on the screen now is Salesforce to SyteLine. So the first one is master data, and you have to pass master data between the two ERP systems, and you can look at the relationship. We call it down below a customer bill to, a customer ship to. In Salesforce, it's called an account. A contact is a contact, of course. Products equals items. So we're passing all the master data between the two systems, of course. That's the basis of any integration. But then we have the sales integration with Salesforce. Again, I would say most people have everything on the left, of course, which are orders, interactions, quotes, and estimates. But on the right, I think we've gone a little deeper. The ability to pass shipments, the ability to pass AR and invoices and RMAs. So again, we've sort of finished off a little more detail than a typical integration might offer as well. We are a service expert at HubKor. So we've integrated the service side of SyteLine with the service side of Salesforce as well. So we handle all of the service orders, dispatching incidents, which they call a case, for example. So all the service piece is handled in gray. We also have a rental extension for SyteLine as well. So because we wrote the rental extension, we need to be able to pass the rental details for Salesforce as well. So we've also extended the application to manage the rental piece of SyteLine as well. Forecasting in orange is all handled and integrated as well. And then lastly, projects. If your business is using the project module in SyteLine, again, we've handled all the projects as well. So as you can see with Salesforce, that's a real heavy investment in the integration and shows the depth of how deep we've gone between SyteLine and Salesforce. Now, when you do this, again, I'm using Salesforce as the example, but they're all the same for all the integrations. We have to go into that third-party solution, and we have to edit, personalize. We have to change the experience in the recipient best-of-breed solution. So in this case, Salesforce, we have to go in and we have to create our own extensions to Salesforce as well to be able to accept a lot of this data, because these objects don't exist in Salesforce, of course. So we have to go in and we have that experience in the team as well. Now, this is also just a visual of how we see the same data. And this is what we would call the hub, if you like. And this is where you can see the data that's passed between the two and anything that might need resolving. So what can happen, of course, is we try to push a piece of data in one direction or the other, let's say SyteLine to Salesforce. And for some reason, the data is not accurate and the recipient can't accept the data. So there are times when you have to have a middleman piece of software, if you like, that will act like a place for you to resolve your issues. So these are where the syncs have failed, and they need to be resolved before the data can pass one direction to the other as well, like a dashboard, I guess one would say. Now, the experience, if anybody uses Salesforce, you'll see here that we've had to dramatically enhance the Salesforce experience to be able to accept all of this information. And especially over here on the right-hand side, where you may or may not know Salesforce well, the ability to add RMA, service, rental, and projects, like we said, clearly needs enhancing on the Salesforce side as well. So hopefully giving you a picture that this is not simply an integration, it's a true enhancement as well to that receiving best-of-breed software as well when it's necessary. On a much lighter scale, I went into a lot of detail for Salesforce there, of course, to show you the depth and the complexity that we've gone to. These are very much high level. So in this case, this is Magento. It's an e-commerce solution. As you look down the left, you can see the layers, the customer is interacting. You've got the software within what role is HubKor doing, and then how is it passing data to and from SyteLine, of course. And that's a very standard e-commerce solution, I would say. Passing orders, passing inventory, taking credit card payments, pushing the payment down into the finance solution. All very standard, I think you would probably agree, for an e-commerce system. We then have the same system for Shopify and WooCommerce. It's all pretty much the same thing. Concur this slide is out of date, I do apologize. But this is really where we began the Concur integration, and it was for expense management. So over on the left there, you see the tools for expense management, which many of us are probably already using. It's definitely the market leader. And then we push that into the equivalent of SyteLine. And inevitably, we've gone a little deeper as well, just like we did with Salesforce. So most integrations between Concur Expense Management and SyteLine only hit this box on the bottom left, right? They hit the general ledger and they post the transactions from expenses to the general ledger. That's what we did initially. It was our first integration. And then quite rightly, customers came along and said, well, we want to push those expense costs into other business objects. So now you can push those costs into jobs, service orders, and projects as well. So again, talking about the depth of the integration. Now, what's not on the slide that we actually do offer as well is Concur have a AP automation side to their business as well. And that is actually already part of the integration as well. So although the slide talks about expenses, we also offer Concur AP automation integration as well. Paperless Parts is becoming a leader in manufacturing. And this is in effect a quoting tool for manufacturers. This came from one of our customers again. I think we sold them Salesforce from memory as our primary integration, and they were using Paperless Parts. This was about a year ago, and they said, could you write the integration to this? And off we went, and we now have an integration to Paperless Parts. This one came from Infor. This is the PLM. Many of you might remember that the PLM system was discontinued for SyteLine about a year ago, maybe a little more. And now Infor only offer the cloud PLM integration. And the SyteLine team did not want to maintain the integration. So Infor came along and asked us to use our HubKor tool and write an integration from SyteLine to the new PLM system in the cloud. So in effect, that was Infor leveraging our tool as well. And we have that integration on behalf of Infor and SyteLine customers. The last few we've done, that long list that you saw earlier, there's about 20-something solutions on there. But what have we been working on in 2023? Well, you've seen Paperless Parts, and I've talked about that. That's a quoting tool. Microsoft Dynamics CRM, I think that's finished now. I could be a little bit out on a limb there. I know about a month ago it was just going through QA, but I think that's finished. XOI is one from the service industry. And this allows artificial intelligence as you dispatch contractors to HVAC, and it allows it to read the plate and get the full history of the unit, and quite a nice piece of software there. And we've just finished our integration with that about a year or so ago. WooCommerce, well, that's just been tagged on. We started with Magento and Shopify, perhaps better known. WooCommerce is just in process. I think that's partway through. I think that's not quite finished yet. And then right behind that, we've got BigCommerce as well, which will in effect be all four of the large commercial e-commerce solutions. And then Tipalti. We finished the Tipalti integration. And this is, I don't know if many people are aware of Tipalti, but in the SyteLine world, we perhaps know the name of Effisoft. And we believe Tipalti is going to become the market leader in AP automation. So we've written the integration to Tipalti, and anybody who comes along and asks for OCR or AP automation, this is our recommended go-to now for SyteLine, and that integration is just being finished as well. So all of this has pretty much happened in the last 3 to 6 months. Our roadmap, we've had this roadmap for some time. To be honest, like the girl said at the beginning, was we're not really sticking to this anymore. This roadmap is about 2 years old. And we have, in effect, succumbed to the demand of the customers and prospects. So our roadmap today is generally being driven by either customers or prospects who are saying, hey, do you have an integration to this? Could you write the integration to that? They've probably taken one of our earlier integrations, and therefore there's a certain loyalty to put them at the top of the pile, if you like, for our continued enhancements and integrations. And I would say today, although we have an internal roadmap, it's pretty much been dictated to by our customer base now. Product support, well, it's complete. It's a SaaS solution, of course. It's a monthly subscription. You'll see that soon. So as you might expect, the implementation services will cover everything you need. And you can read that list, but it's end-to-end implementation as it would be for your ERP system, of course. The support comes with the SaaS solution. So if you take the SaaS, you get the support at no extra cost. It's 8x5 standard or white glove, which you might need during implementation, of course, or maybe in the first week or two thereafter, at 24/7. We do all the data mapping for you. And obviously, as you would expect with the SaaS solution, it covers all the upgrades, breaks, support calls, and ongoing service requirements. So once you've got the SaaS solution, no additional cost. I mean, perhaps you want some UD fields. So for example, let's say Salesforce, and you've created 20 user-defined fields that are not included in our out-of-the-box integration, then there could be some cost for user-defined fields, of course. But if you take it out of the box, generally all-inclusive. Now, pricing is variable, depending on the solution and the complexity to it. But as a rule of thumb, a complex, deep integration, like let's say Salesforce, would be $2,500 per month for your first solution. And then if you take more, let's say you need Salesforce and Shopify and Concur, then the additional products would be at a discount at $2,200 a month. But light integrations, and the one we used as an example for today is the Concur integration to the general ledger. It's an incredibly simple integration. So things that are very light and the investment is minimal, some of those go down as low as $500 a month subscription. So what I'm saying there is, basically it depends. You need to contact the sales team for pricing, but it's going to be somewhere in that window of $500 for a simple implementation to $2,500 for a complex integration. They are annual prepayment required, and they do require a 3-year minimum contract. This is my last slide. This is where all the contact us details will be, and I think this will all be on the recording, of course. But you have Larissa and Rochelle you've already heard from. To arrange demos there in the bottom left is Christina. Sam runs our implementation team. I think that's about it. I don't know if there were any questions either to be unmuted or came in the chat, but we can now take questions if you have any.
We have a question coming in now.
And if anybody wants to unmute your line, we can talk voice to voice as well.
We actually have a couple people typing in now. Okay, so it says, if we use a pre-designed solution, is there any implementation costs?
Yeah, typically they vary again. So I would say, it could be as light as 16 hours. It's more of a configuration. So some of the lighter solutions, and let me go back to that same one because it's super easy. Concur to SyteLine's general ledger. It's an inexpensive subscription, of course, and it's also an inexpensive configuration, which I think from memory is about 16 hours. The Salesforce configuration can be perhaps up to 40 hours. Again, configuration though, right? There's no personalization, there's no integration being written. It's just a matter of configuring your version of Salesforce with your version of SyteLine, and they can come with small configuration costs as well. Yeah, I would say between 16 and 40 hours would be a reasonable estimate for budgetary purposes.
We have a second question coming. We're on Infor version 9 and looking to upgrade to version 10 soon with ION. Does ION itself does not come with a connector for Salesforce, and hence we need to use your product along with ION to get this Infor to Salesforce going?
Well, there's a light integration. The latest version of SyteLine does offer a Salesforce integration. It's a very light integration. So it depends on the depth of your requirement for that integration. What I would recommend is, yes, certainly, talk to Larissa and Sam potentially, and we would talk to you, on a one-to-one about the depth of the requirement for your Salesforce integration. But yes, if you go into version 10 and you've got obviously ION comes with it, of course, as well. That depends. I mean, maybe we should clarify the question. Will that be on-prem or will it be in the cloud? Either way, you get the tech stack, which includes ION, and that's how this connects. So yes, I think the answer in one word is yes.
He is on-prem.
On-prem, okay. Well, as long as you've got the ION piece, on-prem, of course, we'll still be able to connect to it. We are interested, as probably the third or fourth time you've heard. We have a pipeline of things we're working on at all times, but if you have your favorite solution, it's not in that list, we'd love to hear from you.
So he's asking, is Concur Expense Management and AP all one integration or two separate?
It's two separate.
And then we have another question. How is your product licensed? Is it per connection or the number of message exchanged?
They do vary, but generally it's one connection.
Do we have any additional questions? Well, that being the case, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. Again, we will have this information posted to the HubKor website on the resource area. I'll also send an email out to let you know when that video is available so you can share it with your colleagues. Again, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to send those to Larissa, myself, or to Sam, and we'll get back with you as quickly as possible. Otherwise, thank you very much for sharing your time with us today and have a fabulous day.
Yeah, put the contact slide back up, please. That'd just be easier.
And it is in the chat as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Rochelle. Thanks, Gary. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Everyone.
Talk with you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.